Hello, moms and dads. We are so glad you are here on our Father's Day episode, and you are going to love Scott Payne today. Scott Payne spent 25 years in the FBI, most of that time going undercover infiltrating the worst of the worst groups, motorcycle gangs, pedophile rings, and neo Nazi organizations. Through it all, he stayed married to the love of his life, raised two girls, and spent his Sundays at church, sustained by family and faith. If he can raise a good family under these conditions, no one else has any excuses. Welcome to the front parking spot, Scott Payne.
Thank you for having me.
I am so glad you're here. And we were just chit-chatting in the beginning. And I love what you said because you've seen it all. You have seen it all. I love what you said, Scott, about parenting. Tell the audience what you said before we were just chit-chatting before we went on air.
Well, in a lot of the cases that I've worked, just in law enforcement in total, I was 28 years in law enforcement total, and a lot of times parenting it's a big issue. Some of these kids, well, even grown adults too, but a lot of kids are being radicalized online these days, and some of the worst groups that I've been in, I still bonded with them, and I still looked. I could see the situation of lack of parenting. I could see that they were outcasts. They had a hard time fitting in to the social groups. They had been bullied, and then they dive down these dark rabbit holes of online or in the gaming systems. You know, you don't always get to hear what's going on in there. And parenting, the big thing is for me is just don't put on blinders.
Mhm.
I've had a parent. He said, "Oh, I thought it was just a phase." I'm like, a phase? I'm like, your kid has grown men coming here training weeks out of the month, dressed in fleck torn camouflage with machine guns, and we're making sacrifices and talking about huge white supremacy stuff. Your son has a skull with swastikas on it, and on one side is Mein Kampf, and on the other side is a book called Siege, which is like the white supremacist accelerationist Bible. It's like, that's not a phase, you know? So what I see a lot is just being involved. You don't have to be a helicopter parent and ruin your kid's life, but sometimes just talking to them or just let them get their education from you, not from a dark rabbit hole on a dark web app. And if you don't have the information, well, that's out there. I mean, there's the groups, some of these extremist groups I've infiltrated. There are groups out there now called like Life After Hate, Eradicate Hate.
Mhm.
And you can, if that's where I'm not saying your kid's going into that realm, but it could be any realm that could be a dark path. I went down a dark path, but I had a great family surrounding me and praying over me. I didn't even know it at the time. But yeah, just be involved. For me, it's just sitting down and talking.
Right.
That's the best thing you can do. That's where to start right there. Just have
Mhm.
an open dialogue.
Right. And what you're saying, like when these adults were coming to their houses and doing all these things, I mean, they're pretty far down the road right there. What are some warning signs? I know you mentioned like the kids that are feeling like bullied or feeling ostracized. Other than that, what could a parent look for as the beginning of the warning signs that may be starting, that there could be
That,
going down the wrong path?
there's learning things out there. There's like books and stuff. Like I said, Eradicate Hate Global Summit. They're putting out things.
Mhm.
Anti-Defamation League. They put out things. But for me, from what I've seen, it's just being involved. If your kid starts getting withdrawn, um, uh, staying in their room, what are they doing? You
Yeah.
don't have to, like I said, be a helicopter parent. I mean, there's a great application called Bark. Just like I said, it was BARK. They got thousands of people. You put that on your kid's phone, they go through everything. You can pick the level of sensitivity you want. It'll notify you of suicidal talk. It'll notify you of firearms talk, drug talk, sex talk. They'll do all that, and they'll also school you as a parent on what current lingo is online and texting. As a parent myself, my youngest daughter went through a pretty bad phase where she was in this group of kids from like probably seventh to 11th grade. They were all on Snapchat. Snapchat has some very cool things in it,
Mhm.
but it can also be used for some very bad things. And that's what was happening. And I really basically worked the case against my kid in their group. You know, I went in there and I found out what was going on, and I brought it to the attention of the vice
Mhm.
principal and principal of the school. Um, just don't put a blind eye, you know.
Right.
And there's things out there, but that conversation will start it.
Hmm. Now that app, is that an app, that Bark app? Is that an app that they would
Yeah.
put on their phones?
Yeah, you can. I mean, you pay like whatever for it, but I put it on both of my kids' phones, but now I don't. My kids are older now, but
Right.
yeah, it's great. I mean, they go through everything, and I mean, again, I didn't let my wife see everything because I'm way more desensitized than she is.
Right.
So, but I would look at something and it wouldn't bother me. I'd be like, okay, all right, well, that's kind of normal at that age, you know.
Hmm.
But it just gives you just make sure they're not going down some dark
Hmm.
rabbit hole because a lot of these, I'm an active shooter instructor as well. A lot of these, after an active shooter event happens with these young people, they start doing the after action. They come in and they start diving in, and there's always telltale signs. And the
Right.
parents even knew, they just didn't want to say anything. But now their kid is gone. Not that your kid's going to go and do something terrible, but it could have been stopped. It could have been helped.
Hmm.
And that kid needs help. That kid, it's not, I could have went down the wrong path. You know,
Right.
I'm not. I don't dehumanize. I'm just like you just made a wrong choice. You know, and that's where it happens a lot of times.
Good
Um,
advice with those warning signs. And I like to tell parents too that your children are under your roof and under your authority until they're adults, which is 18. So just because they're teenagers and they get embarrassed by you, that is not your time to pull back. That is not,
yeah,
if your friends are at middle school, as I used to call middle school, it doesn't matter where you go. I, as a former educator, doesn't matter what middle school you go to, or like if it's private, public. I used to say it's a black hole of life because the kids are trying to learn about themselves. They're trying to be cool. They're trying to impress their friends and their teachers, but then they know, hopefully, they know what's wrong and right. So it's being involved, knocking on the doors of the parents that they're going to visit, and just don't listen to your kids. Like, don't do that, mom and dad. You're going to do it, right?
yeah, yeah.
For
And
sure.
remember, when I was going to school, if you were being bullied, it stopped at 3:15 when you got out of school. With
Right.
these, it happens all night
Wow.
long.
And you
So,
showed the
and how many
phone.
how many suicides do you see of young kids these days? It happens all the time from being bullied online.
Hmm.
And a lot of times you'll see that suicide, and it'll be like, man, I had no idea. There were no signs. I didn't know. Well, that's why we got to open that dialogue up because you don't want that happening
No.
because it's tough. I mean, as tough as it is to be a teenager, going
Right.
through all the hormones and changes, I got two daughters. It was horrific. Me and my wife were both like, oh well, once you get to high school, you're going to meet some really great people. Nope, it didn't happen. It took till after high school until they got more involved with church on their own and stuff, and they started realizing, wow, there are some good people out there.
Right.
But yeah, just kind of like keep your finger on the pulse.
And the phones, you're right. And you held up
Yeah.
the phone for the people who didn't see that because it's the phones. And that's what I didn't have. My kids are a lot older. And we didn't have, I mean, I remember they got their phone at like 16 or something, because they were just
Mhm.
coming out. Well, I have a question for you about, I know you are a faithful man. When I was reading your chapter in your book there, you were doing all these things undercover, then you'd have to come home and do small group at your home. And that is a lot. That's a big hat to wear and a hat to, you're juggling a lot. So, what did you learn about the misguided or lack of faith in the communities you were investigating? And how did that reinforce your faith at home?
Well, a lot of a lot of the groups I infiltrated didn't have any faith at all.
Mm-mm.
Some of them were satanic,
Right,
which is wrong. I mean, that's
right.
you're going down a bad path
They
there.
got sucked into something. They're going to get
Yeah,
sucked into
yeah.
something. So,
But if you read in the book, when I was a teenager, I fell into it too. I was messing with witchcraft and devil worshiping, and then I had Jesus scared back into me.
mhm.
But yeah, I don't know. Can you just hit
Well,
me again
it's
with it?
yeah, how did that reinforce your faith? Like, I mean,
I
because
got it.
you're juggling the really evil, and I mean, these people are misguided. They have either lack of no faith or satanic or something like that. But
Mhm.
how did that make reinforce you the importance of teaching your kids teaching your kids the Christian faith?
As I got older,
Hmm.
I got better at it. But in the beginning, it's not that it reinforced my faith. It was affecting my faith.
Right.
I'm out there with these bad guys and gals, and then I'm trying to come home And, once I moved to Tennessee, that's when I made the decision. I'm not going to let my job interfere with my faith, or me worshiping, because I'm a musician and a singer as well. So I got involved. And even though I was undercover, not too far away, I'm like, it's a God thing. If it's,
Hmm.
I don't care if the case falls. I don't want my faith to fall. Um, and it's a test. I say my Clark Kent kind of switching into Superman thing was I always wear a cross on my necklace. Well, I would take that cross off and put a skull on or some kind of pagan symbol, depending on the undercover, and that was me until I came back, and then I would put the cross back on. But the small groups and stuff kept me grounded. I mean, for me personally, there were some harrowing things.
Hmm.
There were some times where it wasn't. There was multiple times where it wasn't good. My marriage almost ended. Um, just bad things were happening. But even if I couldn't share everything about the case with my small group or my life group, whatever you want to call them, I could share and they could see. And I can't tell you how powerful it was for me to be put in the center of a room and everybody lay their hands on me and pray over me.
Mm.
Because once that was done, when I come up from that, man, I'm grounded. I know who I am. I know, and I feel like I can take on King Kong. But that has helped me all the way throughout and um, kept me safe, kept me who I am. And yes, it did. As I got older and my kids were getting older, absolutely, I
Mhm.
learned, as I just mentioned, the whole Snapchat thing. You just got to drive home. I mean, we raised our kids the right way. They didn't come. I remember when it was all happening. I said, I guess this is just something that has to happen. I said, because this is not a broken home. This is not a home with no love. I've seen them. I've been in them. I don't understand why you're making these choices. But through faith and time,
Mhm.
we use the God's way, and that I mean, of course, if you're a believer, that's the way. There's no other way. But yeah, I mean, it, I'm an optimist. The glass is
Mhm.
always half full. So
Right. I
I
like
don't
that
even.
too.
Yeah, I mean, if I was the glass is always half empty. I
Mm.
don't know how I would have been able to do what I did, but it almost like it kept me believing in humanity in some way
Right.
or another. I know there's evil out there, but there's good out there.
Right.
Um, that's kind of what it would do for me.
And then by talking about it again, I think when things are kept in the dark and once you talk about it, it kind of brings it out and you're like, okay, I got Jesus coming in and devil wants everything to stay silent. Even like the
Yeah.
kids that are feeling like they're suicidal, they want to keep it quiet and that's, they don't want to tell anyone. But then when they start to do that, it comes out and then that you can address the situation so much better. Now, I know when you're undercover, you can't really tell your family or your small group or your neighbors what you really do. Did people know, or like, were you able to share some things that because your stuff, what you're seeing gives you so much credibility of what not to do. Were you able to translate any of that to your small group or your family?
I was, and
Mhm.
and probably in the opinion of some law enforcement officers or even the FBI, they might have said I was sharing too much, but it wasn't classified. If it
Right.
was classified, I can't talk about it. But most of the cases I worked are criminal cases,
Hmm.
they're criminal charges. So, they kind of use the need to know. But for me, that's not how my household works.
Right.
My household's not the, I've got great friends who are military
Hmm.
and they can go away for 6 months and their household works like that. Mine would not. I can't, I'm about 2 weeks is my limit.
Right.
If I was
Yeah.
gone for 6 months, I'm not sure the house would be here when I got back.
No, of
Uh,
course not. Oh,
but
wow.
yeah, I shared more. And when those bad times happen, if you have the knowledge, that you don't have to experience it like I did, but if you've got the knowledge, then you got something more to talk about. It's
Right.
just uh, again, don't shove it under the rug and act like nothing's happening. Don't let your kid get isolated. You talked about the devil, that isolation. He wants to get you out on that island by
Mhm.
yourself. He wants you to believe there's no way out. He wants you to believe that I mean he's the great deceiver, you know.
Yes.
This it's an open door, Everybody's broke. Anybody who tells you, I don't care if it's the pastor, if they tell you they're better than you, they're missing the point.
So much good wisdom there. And with our dads listening, I want you to talk to our dads right now because not all dads are undercover FBI agents. They may work in an office and, do those, do work jobs like that. but they still have their daily challenges, juggling the family and the career. What advice would you give the dads listening to what as they navigate their life? What piece of advice would you give them, even if they're not seeing all the terrible things that you saw?
The thing that's jumping out to me right now when you ask me that question is you got to have a good balance.
Hmm.
In my book, I talk about it. I went, it was probably like a 3 year period that culminated with me crashing mentally and physically because I
Hmm.
had done so much and I stopped taking care of myself. But if I'm telling you I crashed because I wasn't taking care of myself, do you think I was taking care of my family? No, I
Right.
wasn't. And I learned through that process how it happened, how to let it not happen again. But I also learned that I'm a workaholic and I'm always going to have a full plate because that's the way I like to live my life. But I had to learn how to balance it. And if you break it down, like I'm goal oriented, I'm at my work, I'm going to accomplish a goal. And that's the way my mind works. But if the crap really hit the fan, you know what I mean? If the things really came down to brass tacks, it's God first, it's family second, and everything else is way far behind that. And that's kind of like even with my wife, we came up with a code. Like if she called me and she'd be like, "Hey, I need you to come home" or something like that. I'm like, "Hey, I'm in the middle of this." Blah blah. Blah. I told her, I said, "All you have to do is say, 'Listen to me. I need you.'"
Right.
That is my cue. When she did that, because that was one of our learning things,
Mhm.
I said, "You do that," it flips the switch in my mind, and I go, "Oh, I have left search warrants. I've left in the middle of, and people can get mad all they want. I'm like, hey, I got to go.
Oh,
You want to fire me? Fire me. It doesn't matter. This is my family, and that is it. And this is a Christ following type podcast. I mean, you're the man of the house. Balance it. And as a parent, your kids are going to look at you. We know this. A lot of people know it. I mean, most people should know it. Your girls are going to look at you. They're probably going to try to find somebody a lot like you. Your boys are
mhm.
going to try to find somebody a lot like their mom. They're going to learn from you. So just do a balance. Don't let the work interfere. You can do great in all things, but you need to be able to balance it. And there was times in my life where I did not balance it well at all.
Mhm.
There were times in my life where my marriage almost ended. It's just um, just balance it. That's the thing that's popping out in my head right now.
I love that because so many people are off balance with that. And what I love too is being a wife and that when you had that code word with your wife, it shows her that she is a priority. And it shows
Mm.
her that whenever she calls and says, I need you now, that you would jump. And she has that faith and trust in you that you've got her back when those code words with your wife are said. So shout out to that.
Yeah, like it's popping in my head right now. I'm like, again, I have daughters, and
Yeah.
I know that they're looking at me and how I treat their mother. So
Mhm.
even if times in my life where my mind might not be like on point, I
Mhm.
might not be on a great walk, with Christ. Um, Having girls and realizing that responsibility keeps me in line. I travel. When I travel, I'm always wearing a Christian shirt, whether it's "No weapon against me shall prosper," whether it's a Victor Marx shirt. When I'm in the airports, I'm wearing it. And sometimes I want to get angry. I'm like, oh, but I realize the shirt I'm
Yeah.
wearing, and I'm
You
like,
got your
I'm going to
shirt.
represent. I'm going to represent. I'm like, man, it
That's
keeps me in line.
accountability.
Yeah, it keeps me in line. I'm like, God bless you. Oh boy,
Oh, I love that. And even like having your church or like something Christian on your car, you makes you a better driver too, because you don't want to have like
Yeah.
the road rage and have this on the back of your car. Like, my goodness.
Keep it, yeah, keep it at the forefront. Yeah.
Oh, well, I love that. Well, you would have a code name with your wife, but tell us about your book, Scott. And I know you tell us all about how to find it, how to get your latest book, and all the good stuff.
Sure. The book is called Codename Pale Horse, which is biblical for me. I chose Pale Horse as a moniker in a violent white supremacy group I was in, but it's the Four Horsemen from the
Mm,
Bible. So I was Pale Horse. So it's Codename Pale Horse, and the subtitles like how I infiltrated America's Nazis or something like that. But
mhm,
the thing is it's kind of like it's an autobiography. Um, 28 years in law enforcement. Chapter one is a quick synopsis of me growing up. Talks about when I went a little south with devil worshiping and witchcraft and stuff like that. And then some high school stuff. for what I consider was probably my first undercover, that kind of technique. Chapter 2 is me becoming a cop and a vice and narcotics investigator, doing some pretty scary street level drug stuff there. And then everything else is FBI undercovers. And my faith is all throughout the book.
Mm,
And you can find it anywhere, Amazon, whatever. But it's Simon and Schuster you can go to Simon and Schuster's website, Amazon, wherever. Go to your local bookstore. Um, and yeah, I mean, for me, I have an Instagram account. Everything's pretty much at Scott Payne Big Country. That was my
love it.
nickname all throughout the FBI. Although I'm smaller now, but
Yeah, I love it. You
that's part of
mentioned it.
aging.
You piqued my interest when you said, what made you come out? I know you mentioned it kind of briefly, but what made you change when you were going south? What was it? I know, what made the change in you?
In high school, you talking about the devil worshiping stuff?
Yeah, when you got out of that
Um,
first chapter. Yeah.
I had Jesus, like I said, I had Jesus scared back into me. I was in a dark place.
Hmm.
I had started with witchcraft and then I went straight into devil worshiping. I was introduced to it by a friend,
Yeah.
air quotes
Great friend.
friend, right? Yeah, I know. And I actually scared them away. I went
Right.
so dark in it. But what was happening, if I look back, my parents had gotten divorced. And it was like, hey, are you okay with this? Yeah, I don't care. Are you okay with this? Yeah, I don't care. But that I don't care went in everything I did.
Hmm.
And I just became evil. And I watched every horror satanic movie from A to Z that you could watch. I went to the movie when you used to rent movies at the movie store.
Hmm.
I watched them all. I was mimicking them. I was talking in a demonic voice. And one night I was playing just in my head out loud, doing a scene where I'd seen in a movie where it was a demon possession thing where the person's fighting and screaming and the demon's fighting and screaming. And then eventually the demon laughs because the demon won and they possessed them.
Hmm.
And I was in a room with two friends of mine, and we'd been drinking that night, nothing else, no psychedelics, nothing hallucinating. This is. I mean, I'm a believer. When I was laughing like the demon, I rolled over, and when I rolled over, what I saw was like a watery image that was red, and it was a demon looking at me, smiling, doing his finger like telling me to come here, and I screamed bloody murder. And from what, maybe like 5 feet to reach the light switch, I was as white as a sheet and I was
Wow.
pouring sweat. And my friend, who I'd been losing my friends because of that stuff, my friend, he jumped up and he's like, "What is going on?" Because I scared everybody. And I
Yeah.
looked at him and I said, "If I ever do that again, you have the permission to take a bat and hit me over the head with it." And we're still friends to this day. He became completely calm, and it's as if the Holy Spirit filled him, which I'm sure it did, because he just looked at me like everything went super calm. He looked at me and said, "I told you, didn't I?" And that was it. I didn't go to sleep and I walked to church. I didn't drive to that place that night. I'd gotten a ride. I don't know how many miles it was, but I walked to Edwards Road Baptist Church in Greenville, South Carolina. I think I attended every service.
Wow. Was that
And
your
that was
home
it.
church? Is that the church you had grown to
I
as a
had
kid?
I had visited with my friend.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was it.
And you knew. So it really wasn't your parents that got you back. It wasn't a grandma. It was like that moment you knew that you just had to get to that church because that demon vision scared you so much.
Absolutely. But that, as I said earlier, what I found out later when I grew up and got older and wiser is my grandmother, huge prayer line. My parent, everybody was praying for me all
Oh,
through that. They didn't know exactly what was going on. Again, we weren't
yeah.
having the conversations. There were telltale signs, but nobody said anything. But yeah, that was and then look, that helped me later on. I,
Yeah.
I went in, I went into satanic groups. I've been to a satanic concert festival for 3 days, and I'm like, all right, I'm covered.
Yeah.
You guys are
You
you.
knew.
Yeah.
Wow. That is powerful stuff. And I've heard that too. Like, that Jesus just shows up. Like your friend knew what to say, had the moment, and the Holy Spirit covered you and like get you out of this. And that power of prayer. That grandma who was praying,
Mhm.
probably, she was, instrumental in that.
I was covered the whole time. I'll say this before we go. I wish my wife would have thought of this before we had the book title and everything.
Right?
But I always talk about being undercover, and she said, "You're always talking about being undercover. You're undercover this. You're undercover that." She goes, "You were under his cover," and I went, "Oh man, that is awesome. Why didn't you?" I was like, "That is." I got goosebumps right now. I was like, "You're exactly
Oh,
right."
under
So
his
I
cover.
was covered. I was covered even then. So
Ah, that, mom, and I got goosebumps too. Okay, mamas and grandmas listening, and dads, the power of your prayer. If you're going through a troubling time right now with your kids, know that God is bigger than the situation, and you keep praying because it will be, you don't know what moment it's going to be to get them back in the fold. And Scott, I thank you so much for being here today. Your testimony is incredible, and I think it's a great message for our fathers to hear in this Father's Day.
I hope so, man. Keep rocking it and keep the faith. Keep fighting the good fight. That's what I always say.
Amen. Thanks for being here, Scott.